Hey everybody, welcome to Tuesday night here at the class series. We're glad to have you. My name is Ted Lazat. Over to the other side is Mr. Kip Garvey. I'm going to turn it over to him in just a second. For those of you who for some reason may not have been here before, you're going to just go ahead and go to the chat feature, send me a question. I'll interrupt Kip if I have to. Otherwise, I'll wait till the end and I'll collect everything and then bombard him with all of your inquisitives at the end of it. So hopefully he doesn't break into a workout routine over there at some point in time behind me. But ladies and gentlemen, so 60 years of experience. This man knows what he's talking about. So pay attention, stay awake, and give him your undivided. Ladies and gentlemen, nice virtual round of applause, Mr. Kip Garvey. Kip will talk to you at the end. Have fun.
Oh, Ted, thank you so much. And hi, everybody. Hi to all my fellow trepidatious Terpsichoreans. We're all suffering trepidation over the loss of our great activity during the shutdown. Hopefully we'll be back on the floor soon with all our friends and all our dancers. But in the meantime, I think it's time to say thank you to several people. First of all, our intrepid interlocutor, Ted Lazat, who spends his time helping us navigate through the maze of the Zoom technicalities. And when he should be out helping his father finish the pergola over his recently acquired hot tub, where I'm sure we'll find Ted stewing in his own juices with some sort of exotic adult beverage with a little umbrella in it, paper umbrella, while he's concocting some devastating call series for his precocious students at MIT, who of course will devour whatever Ted creates in a microsecond with mathematical precision, sending Ted back into the hot tub to create more choreography. Ted, thank you so much for everything you do. It's really appreciated by everybody. We want to also thank the general principals of GSI, Grand Square International, which I understand is Tony Oxendine and his ravishingly beautiful wife, Kim, and Curly and family. Thanks for doing everything you do, GSI, for helping college to develop. We do appreciate it. I know a lot of you were listening to Barry Johnson's presentation, and Barry threw some kudos my way that, quite frankly, I was happy to receive, but I really don't deserve them. So I want to set the record straight. I am not the creator of the term groupies. I am not creator of the term double or nothing, and what is the other one that he used, the one and only. A very good friend of mine developed those terms, Mike Hayworth, down in Southern California. And while he and I were writing several papers on groups and group theory and relationship calling, these terms evolved. So those the authorship of those terms belongs to Mike, and he's done a great job in helping us put together some terms that people can be familiar with. The one term that I do want you all to focus on during this session is the term groupies, because we're going to come back to that over and over again. We are going to discuss a topic here that perhaps, I don't know if the attendance is high, low, or across the board, I don't know, but I do know that the topic of technical zeros can be quite a yawner for callers, and it's a bit of an enigma. It's easy enough sort of to understand it, but up until now, no one's really been able to put together a package that we can use. We understand technical zeros. Every once in a while, we recognize them when they happen, but there aren't very many of us who really know how to use them, and they are actually quite easy to use. And I'm going to extend my thanks to all of you who are here during this presentation, and promise you that I will give you one good nugget, one little trick, just because you decided to attend. I'm going to give you a little trick that you'll be able to use the next time you're back up on the stage at your next square dance, whenever that is. Something that's very easy to use, and it's a little trick, and I hope you'll enjoy it. I'll point it out to you as we go along. So the callers of all experience levels can deal with technical zeros, and the more experienced callers, when they hear the explanation that I'm giving today, are going to say, oh yes, I sort of know that, but I just didn't understand exactly how it worked. And the newer callers now are also going to be receiving some information that's going to be highly valuable. However, I want to give a little caveat, especially to our newer callers. There's a skill set that is an absolute prerequisite for you to own before you go ahead with very much intensive training for your calling. And that's the skill of mentally being able to follow 4 dancers in your head, like a virtual movie of the dancers. And you must develop this skill, and it must be developed early on. I'm very serious about this. And I'd like to explain to you how you can develop this skill. What you need to do is you must have at least 2 couples of friends that you can invite over to the house. As they come through the door, you can hit them with a heat gun, do some COVID-19 testing, whatever it takes. Have them kick off their shoes, get down to the socks, and get on the floor. And just with these 2 couples, you're going to develop this skill of mentally following the dancers. You get the 2 couples in front of you facing each other, and you pick one of them. If you're a female caller, you might want to pick the belle's position or the lady's position that has her back to you. Or if you're a man caller, you might prefer choosing the man. It makes no difference. Just choose one of those dancers. And while you're running through some basic and mainstream calls with these 2 couples, you need to anticipate where that dancer is going to be before the dancer arrives. And you're going to use your eyes to verify whether or not what you followed in your mind was accurate. It takes a while to develop this skill, and a lot of practice, quite frankly. So it won't be done in 1 session. It won't be done in 2. Certainly won't be done with 1 tip or an hour's practice. It's going to take several weeks of training before you can adequately follow these dancers in your head. Once you've successfully been able to follow one dancer to the point where you can put together 2 or 3 calls and just walk over and stand in the spot where that dancer is going to be, because you know so well in your mind, you can see that dancer moving through those calls. At that point, you're ready to move on to the next step. And the next step is to bring in a second dancer. Perhaps if you were following the man, you now want to follow the partner as well, and be able to visualize the 2 of them as they move through calls with just these 2 couples using basic and mainstream calls. And that's a very important skill, because most of the technology and most of the lectures you hear on choreographic structure, they become what I call bookshelf theory if you don't have this skill down. This skill is extremely important to own. And you'll hear the theory, and it'll go up in your bookshelf someplace. And then 2 or 3 years down the road, you'll be calling when the skill is better developed. And all of a sudden, you remember that you heard that theory someplace. You heard Kip Garvey or Jack Plattis or somebody talking about it. And you'll go up to that bookshelf and you'll pull that theory down. And now the elements of that theory begin to make more sense to you. And you'll be able to apply these theories to the practice of your calling. So that's a very important skill set. I can't emphasize it enough. Not enough caller schools, when they're dealing with newer callers, brand new callers, take the time to help you develop this school. And it's difficult to do, because in a 4-day school, you could spend 2 or 3 days just working on this one skill set if you're a new caller. It would be invaluable training for you, but you might walk away from the school thinking that, you know, you didn't get very much out of it. When in fact, you probably have learned the most important skill you're ever going to learn as a new caller. So that being said, let's talk a little bit about our ladies, our lady callers. We welcome you. I'm going to apologize because I'm a man. I'm going to apologize because almost all the training that we've done over the years has been through the focal lens of the male and the male dancer. Even when it comes to choosing key dancers, which is an important thing for us to be able to do, we need to be able to pick 4 adjacent key dancers to follow. And from a man's perspective, we often choose couple number 1 and couple number 4, with the number 1 man being the pivot, meaning that he's between these other key dancers. And that number 1 man is bookended on the left by his corner, on his right by his partner. And this is all the male perspective. I've come to the realization over the last decade or so that the females may have an entirely different perspective. And that as a female caller, you might want to follow in your mind the number 1 lady, for instance, and have the number 1 lady be your pivot. And this is perfectly acceptable. You would choose then as your key dancers, since your pivot is the number 2 lady, she's going to be bookended on her left by her partner. and on her right by her corner, so you need to include the number 2 couple. So for you, it would be the number 1 couple, the number 2 couple, where the number 1 lady is your pivot lady, and she is adjacent to her corner on her right and her partner on the left. And almost all of the structural terminology that we use in explaining choreographic structure will apply equally if you happen to choose the number 1 lady as your pivot. Now, the things that don't quite work out well is, well, let's just talk about the number 1 man as a pivot. He has a partner, of course. He has an opposite lady straight across from him. He has a corner to his left. And over there to his right is his right-hand lady. And we've come to use this expression, dancing with a right-hand lady, or going over across the street to a right-hand lady box. Well, if you're a lady caller and you've decided to use number 1 lady as your pivot, you don't have a right hand anything. What you have is a partner to your left, you have a corner to your right, your corner's partner, you have an opposite man, and you have a left-hand man. So anytime that you hear a reference to right-hand lady, you need to transpose that in your mind to the left-hand man. And anytime that you hear the expression, it's a right-hand lady group, or it's a right-hand lady box, you need to transpose that in your mind to left-hand man group or a left-hand man box. And if you can do that okay, then you can use number 1 lady as your pivot, and it might even do you well to do so, because using the number 1 lady allows you to follow a dancing position of a dancer that you're familiar with, because you normally would dance, for instance, in the number 1 lady's position. Okay, so enough said. So if I happen to slip up and mention right-hand lady without also mentioning left-hand man, forgive me. I'll try to clean up my act a little bit, and we'll get on target. So without any further ado, we're going to start the presentation. Wow, what the heck's under my chin there? What the heck is that? It looked like a chicken, for crying out loud. Didn't have that when I was 32 years old. But the Technical Zero, the other magic module. So we know that we have a magic module, which is a conversion module that everybody should be familiar with. And that's the module that will convert our square from a corner box to a partner line. And from a corner box, if you follow the call series of swing through, end circulate, centers trade, centers run, bend the line, you have now converted the corner box phaser to a partner line phaser. But that's a conversion-based module. And by the way, we have another module that goes the other way. So if you want to go from partner line back to corner box, from that same partner line, you'll do a touch a quarter, column circulate, gentleman run, and you're back in a corner box. So there's 2 magic modules that we're all familiar with, or should be familiar with at this point, and used extensively. And I'm sure that even some of our newer callers are using those 2 modules. Well, today I'm going to give you a 3rd magic module, and it's based on the technology behind Technical Zeros. And so, why do we want to bother with Technical Zeros? Well, first of all, zeros are a pretty neat thing to do, because it gives callers the peace of mind of knowing that in executing a zero module, that the dancers are going to end up back where they started from. So that's a wonderful thing. A lot of the zero modules, not all of them, but a lot of them, deal only with 4 dancers. And though we have the ability to incorporate other dancers from time to time, the module itself deals with 4 dancers. Technical Zeros have the added benefit of not only giving the caller peace of mind by knowing where the dancers are going to finish, but it also allows the dancers to dance with all the other dancers in the process. And Technical Zeros often include a change of location, a dynamic change of location, meaning, for instance, some of them, many of them will result in a 90-degree transposition of the square. So a square that's running in a 2x4 general formation left to right will end up running 2x4 north to south. And your typical, or the classic Technical Zero that does that, of course, is the invert and rotate. If I had another hour, I'd like to discuss with you where the words invert and where the word rotate come from, but I'm not too sure anybody has an answer for that. But the idea is that you with using that particular technical zero, the dancers get a chance to dance with all the other dancers, and we're moving the dancers around, moving them to different quadrants, and bam, in our minds, the dancers are going virtually nowhere. We're going from a corner box to a corner box, for instance. And this is the magic behind technical zeros. And so today we're going to open the kimono a little bit here. We're going to show you exactly what the technical zeros are and how they work. And what we're going to cover today is, first of all, we have to do a little bit of some technical spoofing so you can understand what the word technical means. Technical zeros are based on an element known as technically equivalent setups. We'll discuss that. The two partner line and corner box phases that we're familiar with, I'm sure that we all know what they mean, but you know what? The fact of the matter is, just saying partner line does not tell us everything about the partner line that we would like to know. And we're going to concentrate on the elements that are not discoverable simply by using the term partner line. Always travel with a groupie. Okay, kids, now we're talking about choreography here, so let's not get too excited. But I'm going to show you a trick. As I said before, I'm going to leave you with a trick, and it involves the groupie. And I'll give you a complete understanding of who the groupie is and how we can tell where our groupie is and when we're with her. The magic module that we're going to introduce is all eight circulate. Under certain conditions, all eight circulate from parallel ocean waves can be a technical zero. And when it is, it's a powerful call. It's a neat call because the all eight circulate from parallel waves is that type of call where dancers are touching hands, they drop hands, they start moving opposite of each other, away from each other, they end up back together again, magically with different people, and bam, there they are. And the dancers like it. Unfortunately, not too many callers are comfortable using all eight circulate. And what I hope to do before we finish today is develop a sense of comfort for you using all eight circulate, and especially the aspect of all eight circulate when it is a technical zero. Okay, so getting into it, articulating the setup. If you're sitting at in a restaurant at a table with another caller of your own peer, and you want to describe a setup, you need to use your words to describe the setup. We've used the term partner line, but if you had to articulate what that means, the clearest articulation for a partner line is this. It's normally arranged, facing lines, all paired, corners adjacent. Now that articulation will work every single time, every single time. The corner box is articulated as a normally 8-chain box, normally arranged 8-chain box, where the outsides are paired, insides are unpaired, and everybody's facing corners. Okay, we all know this, right? But this articulation is going to work every single time. So there's an implication here that a partner line can have different flavors. And that is exactly true. Here is the illustration of the partner line on the left. And you can see that is a partner line that's formed with the heads on the left end of the line, sides on the right end. This particular phaser has a technically equivalent setup, which is this illustration to the right. And it differs only in the fact that the heads are now on the right end of the line and the sides are on the left end of the line. Any call that's going to move us from one phaser to the technically equivalent of that phaser is going to be a technical zero. And you'll notice that both of these illustrations, even though they differ by the placement of the heads and the sides, both of them satisfy the articulation. The articulation meaning they're normally arranged facing lines, all paired with original partners, and corners are adjacent. This description, this articulation fits both of these technically equivalent setups. When we take a look at a corner box, we know that if we have the head step into the center, turn and face their corner, this is the illustration that you would see on the left. There is a technically equivalent setup to this, and if we just had the sides step in instead of the heads, face their corners, we would have the technically equivalent setup to a corner box. Notice that both of these illustrations follow the articulation. They're normally arranged 8-chain boxes, outsides are paired, insides unpaired, all facing corners. Well, how do they differ? They differ in the fact that in this illustration to the left, the sides of the paired couples on the outside. And over here, the heads of the paired couple on the outside. So these are the two technically equivalent setups. If we were to take any normally arranged formation, let's say right-handed parallel ocean waves, that's the formation and the arrangement. What's missing in this description is relationship and setup. And if we were to say, take all of the right-handed, normally arranged parallel ocean waves, how many phasors could we develop simply by changing relationship and sequence? And since we have 8 relationship states, and we have 2 sequence states, I know that that's argumentative, and I've got a paper I'll send you if you want to hear my side of the argument. 2 times 8 is 16, so the answer would be 16 possible setups or phasors of normally arranged right-hand parallel ocean waves. However, the reality is there are 32, because every single one of those phasors will have a technically equivalent setup. Okay, so now that we understand the technically equivalent setups, we need to figure out, Ted, how I'm going to change my screen. There it is. We need to take a look at the fact, this is an illustration of right face, two face lines. And here we're focusing on the arrangement aspect. And we're remembering that in order for a call series, either a single call or a call series, to be a 0, it must return the entire phasor. If a single phasor element is not returned, then that call or that call series is not a 0. Simple as that. And we find out that with normally arranged two-phase lines, we have 6 possible arrangements. And we find that if the arrangement happens to be the 0 arrangement, if we call a couple circulate, that it will return the same arrangement. So the 0 arrangement is each man on the left, each lady on the right, normally paired couples, and when they circulate, they end up in exactly the same arrangement. The same thing is true in the half arrangement. We see that when the dancers are half arranged in a right face, two-face line, and they do a couple circulate, they're returning to the same arrangement. So the arrangement aspect in a couple circulate is preserved in these 2 arrangement states. The same is not true in the remaining 4 arrangement states. And it's really quite simple to see. In arrangement number 1, we have the men facing out, girls facing in. If we call a couple circulate, we end up in arrangement number 2. So clearly a couple circulate cannot be a 0 when the dancers are in arrangement 1 or arrangement 2, because it doesn't return the same arrangement. And a 0 must return all elements of phasor. Arrangement is one of the elements of phasor. So if arrangement is not returned, you no longer have a 0. And the same thing can be said about arrangements 3 and arrangements 4. So now we know the technical zeros, when we finally turn the page again here, and I will in a second, technical zeros are only going to be a 0 if they return the same arrangement. They have to return the same relationship state, the same sequence state, the same formation, and the same arrangement in order to be a technical 0. So a technical 0 is a call or a series of calls that moves dancers from one setup to the technically equivalent setup. Invert and rotate is your classic technical 0. And when I get over to terminations, I'll run through the invert and rotate, and we'll see exactly how that works. I'm sure that's just going to be a way of refreshing your memory on it, because invert and rotate has been drilled into us significantly now. However, we're going to jump over now to relationships a little bit. And I'm going to give you the core axiom of all relationships. Now, by relationships, we mean what ladies are paired with which men at what time. And there's always going to be this axiomatic relationship of the dancers. every single man at any time will either be paired with the same relative lady or will be across from the same relative lady. I'm going to prove that to you in a minute, because that seems like an oversimplification, but it's not. The fact of the matter is, if we can figure out who the relative lady is, we'll know exactly what the pairings are all the time, anywhere the pairings can be ascertained. So the relative ladies are original partners, of course, original corners, original opposites, and original right-hand ladies. And now for you ladies, you should transpose that to left-hand man. So those are your original relative partner pairings. So when we say that all men have partners, or all men have corners, or all men have opposites, or all men have right-hand ladies, the only other possible pairing state would be that that relative lady is across from them at the same time, or as an alternative to it. And we'll see that. Okay, this means that any time that couples are normally arranged, the relative pairing state is either going to be same, meaning that all the men have the same relative lady, or mixed, which means in every case, the man's relative lady is across from him. So if we think about a corner line, all men are paired with corner lady. So they all have the same relative lady. The only other relative pairing state would be to have the two ladies chain, for instance, or have the two men swap with a reverse flutter wheel or a flutter wheel. And in that particular point, all of the men have their corner lady across from them. So when the relative lady that's being paired with the man is across from the man, the pairing state is mixed. Remember that, okay? It's always mixed. And when the men have the same relative lady, the pairing state is same. So this is a wonderful thing now, because we have just two pairing states, relatively speaking, same and mixed. And if it's not same, it has to be mixed. And if it's not mixed, it has to be same. And if we do a partner change of any kind, we toggle between same and mixed and same and mixed, back and forth. Those are the only two relative pairing states. So there are going to be four groups. I'm going to show you exactly how we come about this, and it's easy. Now remember, this is all theory, guys. So you need to understand that we're giving you an explanation of where we're going to take you next. I'm going to show you all of this and illustrate it to you, and it is easy to not only comprehend, but it's easy to apply. There are four groups, and they're named for the relative lady that the men are paired with when all men have the same relative lady. So you're going to have a corner group, you're going to have a right-hand lady group, and now ladies, you need to transpose that to left-hand man group if you're using number one lady as your pivot, or any lady as your pivot, and then partner group and opposite lady group. So the groups take the names of the relative ladies. That's the important thing to remember here. Groupies. Whenever the men are in a same relative pairing state, meaning that all men are paired with the same relative lady, we say the groupies are paired. So if all men are in a corner line, or if the square is in a corner line, all men are paired with their corners, and corners are groupies. So if you're following the number one man, as you're visualizing in your mind as the dancers move through, you know he's with his corner, he's with his groupie. What's the only other place she can be and still be in a corner group? She could be across from him, and that's it. So it can only be a mixed pairing state where she's across from him, or a same pairing state where she's with him. And the same thing is true, ladies, if you've chosen the number one lady or any other lady as your pivot dancer, okay? When you have the same relative man beside you, then groupies are together. And when relative man is across from you, pairing state is mixed, and groupies are no longer together. All right. So we know that technical zeros are going to work. We saw in the arrangement case that they're only going to work in arrangement states 0 and 1/2. In the case of a right face, two face lines normally arranged. They will not work in the other four. So, and we'll find out that if you find a technical zero that works in arrangement state 1, it'll also work in arrangement state 2, but it won't work in the other four arrangement states, 0, 1/2, and 3 and 4. Also, if you find a zero that works when the relative pairing is same, it will not work when relative pairings are mixed, but instead will yield you a four ladies chain effect. Okay? Now the technical zero that works from a mixed relative pairing state, and we're going to see one that does that because that's one call we're going to focus on right at this time. We're going to find out that if it works from a mixed relative state, it will not work from the same relative pairing state, but instead will result in a four ladies chain effect. We're going to walk you all through that. Now, bend the line is a zero when the pairing states are same, the relative pairing states are same, but not when the relative pairing states are mixed. So any time that you have facing lines, and Keen, let's open up the kimono even further here, because bend the line will only be a zero in facing lines. Bend the line will not be a zero in any other kind of line where bend the line is an appropriate call. Why? Because it doesn't return the same formation. If you have a right face parallel two face lines and you call bend the line, the result is in facing lines. That's not the same formation. So therefore, bend the line can never be a zero from right face two face lines or any other line except in facing lines, because a bend the line with in facing lines results in in facing lines. So the formation aspect of the zero requirement is there. If we take our partner line that you see here in the left illustration, and we can see that we have the partner line with the heads are on the left and the sides are on the right. We know that a technical zero is going to transfer us from one formation or phasor to the technically equivalent. The technical equivalent of this would be head men on the left end, side men on the right end. Bend the line does that, doesn't it? And also, our get out of element left will work. If the get out from there was slide through square through 3, we could do a bend the line, slide through square through 3. So many of our callers, when we begin learning calling, we discover this right on. Oh, that's really neat. But then all of a sudden, jump over here to this illustration. Now this illustration differs from the one on the left simply because we did a two ladies chain. So this is a mixed pairing state. The men no longer are paired with the same relative lady. Instead, they're looking at or across from the same relative lady. The get out from here is not going to be element left or slide through square through 3. That's simply not going to work. You need a different get out from here. The get out from here would be slide through, swing through, and a right and left grand. But if we do a bend the line from here, and then we try to apply this get out, not only does it not work, but instead of getting partners, we end up with opposite ladies for partners when we use that get out. So if the entire get out is slide through, swing through, right and left grand, by the time we come to the right and left grand, it'll be with our opposite lady. There's a four ladies chain effect. Why? Because we used bend the line in a pairing state in which it doesn't work. Bend the line will not work in a mixed pairing state as a zero, but it will work in the same pairing state. All right. The next one is all eight circulate. And here's a case where all eight circulate will work as a technical zero in a mixed pairing state, but not when it's in the same pairing state. Over here to the left, we have an illustration of a right-hand half wave that we got to by starting in a corner box and saying swing through. So this is where you are, where the dancers are when they finish a swing through from a corner box. From here, if we say centers run, wheel and deal, we can do an Alaman left. So that's our get out. However, if we instead call all eight circulate, you're going to find out the get out will still work, even though the dancers are actually adjacent to the opposite lady from the one they have right now. It'll still work because this is a technical zero. All you have to do is change either the two ladies or the two men, and the pairing state goes from mixed to same. So over here, we have a corner box, so we just said step to a wave. The pairing state is same. Each man is adjacent to his corner. If we call the get out from here, would be like centers run, bend the line, and you can do an Alaman left or right and left grand, whatever you want. That try to give you the simplest get out. centers run, bend the line, we'll get them out from here. Now, if we call an all 8 circulate, and then we try to apply this get out, it will not work. Instead, if your complete get out was centers run, bend the line, right and left grand, the right and left grand would be done. Number 1 man would be doing the right and left grand with number 3 lady. And in that particular case, you're not resolved at all. Matter of fact, you're halfway around the square because you're suffering from the 4 ladies chain effect of using a technical 0 in a pairing state in which it does not behave as a 0. Okay. Oh boy. All right, Ted, I'm going to jump over to the other thingy here and see what happens. Maybe I can just do this. Ted, are you seeing terminations?
Not yet. Nope.
Okay. All right. So much for that theory.
You can go back and you got it?
I got it. There you go. How about now?
There you go. Good.
Yeah. All righty. Good. Okay. So we have here Brad Christie. God, he's done all of us a big favor in developing this sequencer part of the Terminations software. And Brad did me an additional favor of adding a call that has just recently been added. So if you haven't upgraded your Terminations, you might want to do that. I'll tell you when that comes around, when I get to it. And so naturally, you have your square here. As a man caller, I'm going to focus on number 1. He's my pivot. Everything's going to involve around number 1. And ladies, you can choose lady number 1, and she's your pivot. And remember now, your key dances are going to be 1 and 2. Okay? And you don't have a right-hand situation, ladies. If this is your pivot, you have a left-hand situation. When it comes to a left-hand man, I'll have a right-hand lady. You'll have a left-hand man. So now let's start. Let's just move the dancers out a little bit. My first step is to show you the classic invert and rotate. So I'm going to have the heads square through 4, or just step to the center and turn and face your corner. Same result. And at this point, I'm going to call the invert and rotate, which is slide through, pass through, bend the line, and slide through. And the dances are now in. Just go back to the articulation we gave you. Normally arranged 8 chain boxes, outside couples paired, inside couples unpaired, all facing corners. They're in a different location. It's a great little move. And Jerry Story did a fabulous explanation on why this is a power move, the invert and rotate, and why you should all own it and be able to use it. But it is a technical 0. So if I go back and undo those calls and get you back to the corner box, and the next thing I do is a reverse flutter wheel. It has a net effect of changing the 2 ladies. So it changes the pairing state from a mixed pairing state to a same pairing state. Okay? In other words, all men are now paired with the same relative lady. They all have corners adjacent to them as partners. Now I'm going to apply the invert and rotate. So I have slide through, then I'll have pass through, I'll have bend the line, and I'll have slide through. And if I tried at this point, and now I have to unchain the ladies or undo that lady's chain. So let me get my abbreviations up. It bugs me. I can't remember what reverse flutter wheel is. Oh, just RF. So I'll do a reverse flutter wheel, just like I did the flutter wheel before. And now I no longer have my corner box. As a matter of fact, if I were to call an Alaman left from here, can you see that even though the men are all in sequence, the Alaman left can be done with the lady in front of them, but it's not their corner, and they would return to their opposite lady. That's suffering the 4 ladies chain effect of using an invert and rotate, in this case, from a pairing state in which it will not act as a 0. So invert and rotate will only act as a 0 when the pairing state is mixed in an 8 chain box setup. Okay, that's a good thing to know. Now let's undo all that and go back to heads lead right. And here's an abbreviation I put in, circle to align. Okay, and now we're going to discuss with you the underlying rule, the axiomatic rule of pairings, which says at any given time when you have normally arranged dancers, all men will either be paired with the same relative lady or be across from the same relative lady. I'm also going to introduce you to some group speak at this point. Anytime that the men, in this particular case, you can see that all men are paired with the same relative lady. They all have original partners. And when it comes to watching the square, a lot of us will follow our pivot. So I'm going to watch this man, and he's going to be in a collection of dancers. Now, there are 4 collections in the square that I can look at. This particular collection that I'm circling right now is called the near collection of 4. It's the box of dancers that's closest to me. I'm here calling. The far collection is on the other side. The right collection is these 4 dancers who happen to be in the same line. And the left collection would be these 4 dancers who are in the same line. So if I'm going to focus on my pivot, I've got 2 collections that I can look at that contain my pivot. I can look at this collection, or I can look at the line that my pivot is in, either one. And a lot of times in our calling, our focus will jump back and forth between these 2 collections. In any given collection, if I take a look at it, all men are paired with partners, either the line or a crosswise. This is called a partner group. And we simply mean whatever collection we've elected to look at is the group that we want to give the name to. So I'm looking at my near collection and I'm saying, this is a partner collection, okay? Now something interesting is going to happen when I call a ladies chain. When I call a ladies chain and I'm focusing on these 4 dancers in my near collection, they haven't changed. They're still in a partner group. So the partner group doesn't relate to a specific pairing. It just relates to these 4 dancers who are in the collection and to how they can possibly be paired. And these are the only 2 possible pairing states. Since they no longer have the same relative lady, they must be in a mixed pairing state. So this is a mixed pairing state, mixed for everybody. And in this collection, the pairs are in a situation where each man is facing his partner. So this is still a partner group. But now I take a look over here to this collection and I see I've got something totally different. If I had a situation where each man in this right-hand collection were to be paired with the same relative ladies, I'd have to swap these 2 ladies, and then the answer would be an opposite group. So this line is in an opposite group, while this line is in a partner group. Partner and opposite groups are in the same family. So that whenever we have a group overlap like this, it's overlapping because I'm basing everything on the pivot. That's my overlap point. And all of these 4 dancers are in a partner group, while these 4 dancers are in an opposite group. Anytime you have a mixed pairing state, you're going to have 2 groups that the square can be in at any possible time. And those 2 groups will be the opposite groups in the same family. So the family groups is partners and opposites. They're in the same family. So if I have a partner group here and the pairings is mixed, this has to be an opposite lady group. And if I do anything to pair this man up with that lady, all men will be paired with opposites. And that's just a wonderful thing to know. You're going to have to practice it, but there you go. All right. So even though I did a ladies chain, we still have a partner group situation. All right. Now, whoops, let me get back here. I'm asking the end ladies to chain diagonally. What does this do? Well, first of all, we did a ladies chain, and anytime we chain, men or ladies, the relative pairing state toggles. So I was in a mixed pairing state, now I'm in a same pairing state. I just have to figure out what that same pairing state is. And if I concentrate on my collection of dancers that are near to me, I can see that my pivot is with his corner. I can also see the number 4 man is with his corner. I can also see the development of a corner box here if I did a right and left through and followed it up with a slide through. I'd have my paired couple, number 4 on the outside, my unpaired couple on the inside, all dances facing corner. It would be a corner box. So the relative pairing state toggles from mixed to same. I just had to figure out who they are. Well, it's, you know, in the process of having these two ladies chain, just knowing that the pairing state has to be the same, I can see that my pivot is with his corner. And so he must also be with his corner. They have to be, because we're toggling between the mixed pairing state and the same. And if this man has his corner, this man must have his corner. Every man must have his corner. That's what same pairing state means. And so here we go. We've gone from a partner situation to a corner situation. Now let's chain the ladies again. And this chain is going to change the state from a same pairing state to a mixed pairing state. You can see the mixed pairing state. This guy's with his original partner. This one's not. It's a mixed paired state. Okay? And at this point, we're going to say N ladies, diagonally chain. Oops, chain diagonally. Got to get the syntax right. And this is going to change it from the mixed state to a same. And again, I'm looking at this man, my pivot man, and saying, you know, he's with a lady I don't know. There's only 2 ladies I don't know. The number 2 lady and the number 3 lady are the 2 that I don't know. I don't know them because they're not key dancers. And so he can be with number 2, she could be the number 2 lady, or she could be the number 3 lady. I don't know. How do I figure that out? Well, it's really quite simple. I look over here, I see his original partner. If his partner here, this has to be opposite. And since he has his opposite, and I just toggled from a mixed pairing state to a same pairing state, all men must have opposite ladies. And that's exactly what they have. All men now have opposite ladies. So since the men are paired with the same relative lady, I'm going to switch that to the other state by doing a ladies chain, which gives it not only a mixed pairing state, but it also satisfies the other part of the axiomatic equation. And that is that the men are now facing the same relative lady. So the men are either paired with the same relative lady or facing the same relative lady all the time. Now I'll do an N ladies chain diagonal. And who's this going to be? Well, I know that I had a mixed pairing state. This is going to be a same pairing state, which means my pivot man is going to be paired with some lady. And if I can figure out who that is, all men are going to have the same relative lady. Well, number 1 man on my pivot man is facing his original partner, and I don't know this person. Well, guess what? This got to be right-hand lady. And for the ladies who have number 1 lady as your pivot, this is a left-hand man situation. Everybody is paired. For the ladies who are using number 1 lady as a pivot, you're paired with left-hand man. And for men who are using number 1 man as a pivot, you're paired with right-hand lady. Okay, there it is. And we're almost all the way home. I mean, at this point, I'm going to say, and let's just take a look at the collection again, okay? Can you see this collection right here? Can you see that we can have the outsides paired, the insides unpaired, not facing corner? That is the across the street right-hand lady box situation. For the ladies using number 1 lady as your pivot and number 4 man as your left-hand man, if you did a slide through, your pivot would be facing left-hand man, and therefore it would be a left-hand box situation. Now, I'm going to complete my routine here by saying ladies chain. I'm going through all the possible combinations of ladies that I can have. And I've gone now from a same pairing state to a mixed pairing state. Now I'm going to do the last chain, which is the N ladies chain diagonal. All right, and would you suspect that this is going to bring everybody back to partners again? Yeah, because we've covered every possibility. And every single case, there were only 2 states those dancers were in, the pairing states. The pairing states were the same, meaning the men had the same relative lady, or mixed, meaning that the same relative lady was across from the man. So that proves the axiom that at any given time, all men will either be paired with the same relative lady or across from the same relative lady. Okay, that's a mouthful. All right, let's go back to our square. and show you the all 8 circulate as our magic module. Ted, how are we doing on time?
It's about 8:52. How much more you got?
No, I've got some.
3-4 hours? We're good.
No. But I do have 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, that should be fine.
Okay, so we have a box. Here's your corner box situation right here. And we're going to get into a mixed paired wave. Okay, we're using swing through as the call. It's a mixed paired wave because you can see the end dancer and the center dancer are paired with each other, and this guy's got his opposite lady, this guy's got his partner. It's a mixed paired wave. This is the prerequisite for all 8 circulate being a technical 0. So I think, well, let me just run you through the get out, okay? I'll say centers run. Sure, I will. Centers run, wheel and deal. And we're back in the 0 box. So that's the get out. Now I'll say swing through again. So to establish my mixed paired wave, I'll ask everybody to circulate. And now I'll apply the get out. Centers run, wheel and deal. And there it is. There's the technical 0. It has completely changed or inverted the roles of the heads and the sides. The heads are now paired on the outside, sides are unpaired on the inside, all dancers facing corner. All right, let's go back where we were. As a matter of fact, since we're in a corner box, let's throw an invert and rotate in, because we know that that's also a technical 0. So we'll do a slide through, pass through, bend the line, and slide through. And here we are. We're back again where the sides are on the outside paired, heads are on the inside paired, and all the dancers have moved through different quadrants now. Now let's throw in the all 8 circulate again. Swing through. There's my mixed paired wave. You can see it right there, mixed paired. Circulate. And I'm going to bring them back to the box by saying centers run, wheel and deal. And there they are. Now look how the dances have moved. I mean, there's been no rotation involved, geographic rotation involved using the technical 0 of swing through all 8 circulate. Well, actually, the technical 0 is all 8 circulate. There's been no rotation. I mean, they're virtually, the dancers have moved to different locations, but my 2x4 arrangement hasn't rotated at all. So now let's throw in the invert and rotate one more time. All right, so we have, get my cursor back over here, slide through, pass through, bend the line, and slide through. And here we are. We moved the dancers 180 degrees from where we started. But look at all the calls we use. I mean, it's true they're the same calls, and it's true that we really don't want to do this in practice, but we can disguise some of these calls. Like the centers run, wheel and deal can be disguised as a centers run, Ferris wheel, centers pass through. We can disguise these calls and give them different calls. But what we're doing is we're keeping the dancers in a corner box. We haven't moved them at all from a corner box, and yet the dancers are dancing in all the quadrants of the square. And that's the power behind the technical 0 that you really need to appreciate and start utilizing. Now, all 8 circulate can be used as a technical 0 anytime that you go from a same pairing situation to a mixed pairing situation. So I'm going to say circle to a line and bring my dancers out to a partner line. That's a same pairing situation. I'll say pass the ocean, and that's a same pairing situation. I'll have centers trade, and now the situation is mixed. So if I were to do an all 8 circulate from here, I want you to see 2 things. I started in a partner line. Who are groupies in the partner line? The groupies are original partners. I'm focusing on my pivot man. His dancer facing in with him is his original partner. So groupies are facing the same direction. What makes this technical zero work is that whenever the groupies travel together to a new location, the group never changes. And so since my groupies are traveling across, and this is a partner group right here, since they're traveling across, they should end in a partner group. So I'll say circulate. And the dancers will all end in a partner group. And now all I have to do is unmix it, which is simple. Swing through. There it is. Centers run, just to bring it back to something normal. Bend the line. And there's your partner line again. And that combination is something that the dancers don't necessarily see happening. But all you've done is you've moved it in your mind. You've moved the dancers from one corner group to another corner group, used the all eight circulate to try to change the referencing of the pairs, the inversion of the pairs, and then you're back in a partner line again. So, and this can happen anywhere. Let's move the dancers from here to, with a touch a quarter, circulate. Now this is that magic module. Boys run. And there you are, you're in a corner box. Okay. Now here's the secret about groupies that you really need to appreciate. Right now, I'm focused on the far collection. My far collection is a corner group. Why? Because if all the men were paired with the same relative lady, they'd be corners. A slide through would do this. Let me show you. So now all men are paired with their corners. So groupies are paired. If I keep groupies paired, I can take them anywhere with any number of calls I want, and they'll always be in a corner group, always. In this particular case, because I'm starting in a corner group, they'll finish in a corner group. So let's prove that. Pass through, wheel and deal, centers, pass through. Notice my groupies are moving together. My number one man, number four lady, they're moving together all the time. Swing through. Boys run. Notice they're together. 1 and 4, they're together. All I'm watching are these two dances. Circulate. These are nice flowing moves. Chain down the line. Uh-oh, I don't have her anymore. Better get her quick. Try a flutter wheel. Whatever the heck that is. Flutter wheel. And boom, I've got her back again. No problem. If I'm in a corner group, all I have to do is get the outside couples paired and the inside couples unpaired facing corners, and I'm home. Slide through does that from here. Alaman left, and come on back home and square your set. Okay. This is the core element that you need to take home with you. And it's the trick that I told you about that I would leave you with. You can put the dancers in any group, any one of the 4 groups. You pair the groupies together, keep them together, and wherever they go, from that point on, wherever they go, you'll always be in that same group. Now, there is a little caveat here. You need to be careful. You cannot do a conversion call. What's a conversion call? It's a call that changes 2 dancers in the center of the square. And calls that do that are ends circulate all by itself, or centers circulate all by itself. These are no-no calls. Don't do them. Column circulate is a conversion call. The AC-doocy contains a conversion call of ends circulate. That's the conversion part of an AC-doocy. Spin chain through contains a conversion because of dancers moving through the very center of the square, 2 dancers. Or any other call where you're working a center couple and you exchange the 2 pairings in the center. That's also a conversion. You want to avoid those. Or if you happen to use one of those, you have to undo it so that you can get your groupies paired again. So that's the trick I'm going to leave you with. And I want you to focus on that as you sit down with terminations and work some things out. Let me work you one more time with a heads past the ocean. I'm going to bring everybody to a right-hand lady group. And for you ladies who are using the number 1 lady as your pivot, you are now in a left-hand man group. Okay. Now I'm going to take these 4 dancers on the right-hand side, and I'm going to watch them. Why? Number 1, my pivot's there. Okay. Now, ladies, you might want to watch these 4, this collection, because that's where your pivot is. but I'm watching the number one man, okay? And I know that he's paired at this point with his right-hand lady. So I'm going to call some calls that will keep this pairing together. And if I break them up for any reason, then I'm going to put them back together again. So swing through. Boys run. Whoops. Got to type it correctly. Okay. If I say couples circulate right now, I'm really losing track of my number two lady and my number one man. They're getting pretty far away from each other. So don't do that. Call the centers trade. That'll put them together. Let's do a Ferris wheel. Hope that's a Ferris wheel. How about a double pass through? Notice they're together. Okay. Let's leaders trade. Can we do that? Sure. Pass through. Trade by. Swing through. Notice I'm keeping number one with number two lady. Boy run. Bend the line. This is going to be a right-hand lady group. And you can look at it with the left-hand collection, or you can look at it with the far collection, where my pivot man is. Each man is paired with his right-hand lady. Because I kept this man with his right-hand lady, all men are with right-hand ladies. Because you kept your pivot lady with her left-hand man, all ladies are paired with their left-hand man. Okay, at this point, you're just going to go for a get out. All right, here we go. Square through 4. Well, I guess I got to put my cursor in there again. Hang on. All right, square through 4 into a wrong way grand. Bam. They're going to meet at home. They're going to do a slide through, back away, and celebrate. Okay, Ted, that's what I have. Let me just go over my notes real quick one more time. Make sure I haven't left anything out. Covered a lot of material here. I hope you found it interesting. Let me review your takeaways. The number one takeaway is don't be afraid of a technical zero. The number two takeaway is the core element of a technical zero that really makes it work is keeping groupies together. Every single technical zero, when it acts as a technical zero, keeps groupies together. You can test that out and see it. And then the third takeaway is to heck with the technical zeros, just get the technical zero effect by calling and keeping groupies together. If you want to keep groupies together, fine. If you want to do a transition over to another group, or you want to do a conversion over to another group, once you arrive at your new group, pair those groupies, work with them, and you own it. So this is the essence of relationship calling, to always know how the dancers are paired and who they're paired with. This takes time to develop, okay? It's like any other aspect. I mean, you take a master's program in college, you've done it in 2 years. The master's equivalency in square dance calling is about 5 years. So it just takes a lot of time for us to work this out. God bless you all for staying in there. I do appreciate you being here. Take this little trick with you. You can use it at your next dance. Keep groupies together. You're always in the same group. Ted?
Hey, you always want to keep your groupie with you. We got that.
Hey, that's the way I feel.
It's a good news to go with. Honestly, I had one question and then you answered it as you were going. We can restate it in case anybody else had it. And when you first started, you were talking about the fact that any phaser has or phaser, depending on where you want to go, has basically the two equivalent positions. And I think you covered that in the stuff that you had, but if you wanted to confirm that one more time, that's fine.
We simply say that we know that every single phaser is going to have, they're Gemini twins. They're Geminis. Every phaser has two adaptations. They're technically equivalent because get outs that we use from adaptation A also work from adaptation B. In the case of a partner line, if you put the heads on the left end of the line, that's adaptation A. If you put the heads on the right end of the line, that's adaptation B. But the get out from that particular phaser will work regardless of which adaptation you're using. So they're called technically equivalent setups.
Very good. All right. As I said, you pretty much handled it, but I always like to ask the question again afterwards just to make sure. Honestly, I think it's a lot of material that you just covered. And for some of the new guys, I'm sure their head's spinning. So remember, you can go to GSI Callers in about another day. So about Thursday morning or so, I should have this up because you're going to want to review it again and understand them a second time. And as you see it another time, it's going to get easier and easier every time you take a look at it. And they're going to have to watch it a second time. Okay, I know I'm going to be watching it a second time. And lucky for me, I can cut out that whole shebang that you were doing about me right at the beginning before I ever posted anywhere. So it'll be like it never existed. I'll take care of that. But that was pretty funny. I don't have anything else, honestly. You covered it all in fine detail, and I'm sure, again, whatever they couldn't get as it was going by, they all know they can go back and watch it a second time, which is the beauty of this whole thing. So that was wonderful, an awesome presentation. I appreciate it. I know they all do. You're seeing the thank yous in the chat. You can turn that on if you haven't seen them. So nicely done. For the sake of everybody else, remember next week we've got Shauna Carey going to be here. She's going to be talking about the Music for Callers website, as well as the Clearinghouse, and probably a little bit on music production in and of itself. 2 weeks from today, we've got Eric Hennerlaw coming out. He's going to talk about terminations so that you can kind of figure out everything Kip was just doing and why his was moving faster than the rest of us when we tried to do it a couple weeks ago. So again, Kip, I can't thank you enough for taking the time and joining us. It was great. Thank you very much for being here. I know everybody else is very happy. You had about 120 some odd people at its peak. So
I didn't
nicely
think we
done.
have much interest in technical zeros.
Evidently, there's going to be a lot of it. So again, thank you very much, Kip. And for everybody else, appreciate it. We'll see you here next week, gang. Thanks again. Bye-bye now.
Margarita time.